shout out videos again. Well, number one, shout out to Nolan Maowski and Dark Husserman and Nolan. I messed up. And big shout out to Ryan Collins. That's my boy. And triple shout out to Dan. Triple shout out to Dan Ryan and Kevin Marquez and Logan Wade. And this could go so on. Shout out to Darius, who graduated early, who goes to University of Illinois. That was my brother. Shout out to Jordan Green. He got the cutest eyes ever, but shout out to Jordan Green. Shout out to all the mixed boys at OTH. All the mixed boys at OTH. Shout out to. I don't know who all mixed now. I know Marcellus is. Whatever. Shout out to all the mixed boys at OTHS there. Shout out to Damon and Wayne Hendricks and Jasmine Bonds. Those are my three thugs. They like my thugs. They like my thugs. Okay. Shout out to shout out to my best friend Dirk and John. Big shout out to them. Also shout out to, I think I skipped the volleyball player. Big shout out to Spencer Kirkham. Shout out to them. Oh yeah, shout out to my boy Andre. A big shout out to Andre Gibson. And Madison. Shout out to Madison Willis. There's more people I'm trying to shout out. Shout out to my bro Joshua Gregory. Shout out to Jaylene Beverly, who talks to me when I see him. Shout out to what's his name? I gotta think of people's names. Shout out to Matt and Kayleen. Big shout out to them. Shout out to what's this girl's name? Shout out to John Hobbs' girlfriend Sydney or something like that. Shout out to Erin Archibald. Shout out to I said Kayleen. Shout out to my mom and my dad. Shout out to Josh Johnson. Shout out to Jeremiah Williams. I don't know this dude's name, but shout out to AR Junior on Twitter. I don't know his name, but shout out to him. I don't really know his names. I don't really know his name like at all. Shout out to Cyrus Odom. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Brenda Billock. Shout out to Amanda and Marissa. Shout out to Nikki Manikana. I don't know how to pronounce it. Shout out to Little Chef for having more swag there. I shout them out for a reason. Shout out to Bryce Carpenter. Shout out to Parker Willow. Shout out to J-Dog. Jacob Lost Business, J-Dog. Shout out to Ryan Steffens. Shout out to Yana. Big shout out to Yana. Shout out to Nico Turk for giving me a hug. Shout out to all the OTHS volleyball players and all the OTHS basketball players, ladies and boys, shout out to them. Okay, shout out to the boys baseball team. Shout out to the boys lacrosse team. Oh, shout out to Jack and Wembley. Shout out to Clayton Geddes, whatever your last name is. Shout out to Jazzy Bonds again. Shout out to OTHS Today Sports. I don't even know why I just randomly shouted out people. Shout out to, I did myself. Shout out to Brandon Montini. Shout out to Jacob Joe Roberts and Courtney. Shout out to Tyreek for having swag. I don't even. Shout out to Allie Singular, something like that. Shout out to shout out to AJ. Okay, just shout AJ out randomly, whatever. Shout out to Chloe Lester. We known each other for a while, but big shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Shamar Robinson. Shout out to Kristen Chavez or something like that. Shout out to my cousin Montez Women. Shout out to my cousin Keisha. Shout out to Tamon Franklin. Shout out to Kijan. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Jada. Shout out to Bauer Ryan. Shout out to him. Shout out to April Field. Really? He doesn't shout out to April Field. That's mean. Okay, whatever. I'm just joking. Shout out to Drake. Shout out to Taina Vine. Shout out to Tim Proud. Shout out to Brent Darden. Shout out to Keith Darden. Shout out to Allie Patch. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to I Already Did You. Shout out to Tana Hudson. Shout out to Danielle Palmer. Shout out to Manish, the Sound Down, something like that. Shout out to Devontae L. Cooper. Shout out to I already did it. Shout out to Patrick Lacey. Shout out to Jerry and McLean. Shout out to David Sweezy. Shout out to Taylor and Wright. Shout out to John Hobbs again. Shout out to Brooke, Aaron's girlfriend, Brooke. Shout out to Austin Jackson. Shout out to Stephanie Quillen, Henry Raven, Chance Armstrong, Riley Weaver. Big shout out to them. Shout out to Tyus Berry. Shout out to Isaiah, Zay. Shout out to Zay. Shout out to Riley Weaver again. Shout out to Donovan Franklin, Big Don. Shout out to Lamonte. I don't know. Shout out to Greg Gibson. Shout out to Jonathan Klinger. Shout out to Caitlin Huller. Shout out to Danielle Lee. Shout out to Carolyn Mitchell. Shout out to Julian Thomas. Shout out to Patrick Riley. Shout out to Michael Holland. Oh God. Shout out to Michael Jackson. You randomly shout out. Shout out to Darren Ryan. Shout out to Courtney Ballard. Shout out to Jeff Ryger. Shout out to Tyrus. Shout out to Mango Kush got Kush is got something. Shout out to Jacob Bowen. Shout out to Track Boy Kurt. Shout out to Joey Edwards. Shout out to Dark Hudson. I guess I could shout out to Jordan Wallace. Shout out to Darian McLean. I'm sorry, I'm got emotional for a second. Shout out to Rachel Clay. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. You're gonna have to excuse me. Smoking on Keisha. Shout out to her. That's my cousin. I love my cousin. Shout out to Matt Lloyd. Shout out to Johnny Little. Shout out to Rachel McCurley. Shout out to Nathaniel Abado. Shout out to Matthew Cruz Kaufman. Shout out to D Mosley. And that's it for shout outs at OTHS for right now.